Okay, we're going to give it 1 or 2 minutes just for Danny to go around and whistle. Thank you. So anyone that doesn't know Danny McLaughlin, he also works for Startacus. There he is. Go and tell everyone to come over and listen to our panel, please, Danny. Thank you. Right, so today's panel, or the 410 panel, should I say, is focused on funding for your tech startup, the current Scottish investment landscape. Just wanted to start by introducing myself. So my name is Alastair Cameron. I'm the co-founder of Startacus. Startacus does stuff across the UK and Ireland with startups, and that's from very early stage, ideation stage, through to Series A. And we work with organizations, whether that's through content, journalism, events, all the way through to kind of direct acquisition of startups for opportunities and programs. So that's where I'm coming from within this. I'm based in Northern Ireland, but luckily we do work across the whole of the UK and Ireland and further afield. So it's great to be here in Glasgow. I should probably add that my granddad was from Glasgow as well, just as a little local nod, but I can't say I've got the accent, unfortunately. So I want to do introductions for everyone that's on the panel today. So Will, if you could start with yourself, introducing who you are and where you come from.
Hello, everyone. My name is Will Benton. I am co-founder and director at a company called Meta. We are for lack of a better word, because it has some negative connotations in the startup world, innovation consultancy. I'm not a consultant. I am a startup founder. I've been working in tech for the last 10-ish years. Initially, as a startup founder, went through accelerator programs, started investing, now run programs. And Meta works in the UK, the UAE, and across the Middle East, and in the US, designing, delivering seed to Series A stage accelerator programs, and then doing some stuff in the public sector as well. So.
Excellent. Before we go on, I just want to ask Will, I know you're running something at the moment, and you've got an application process open. So can you just tell us what that is, obviously, just in case anyone's listening that's interested there?
Yeah, sure. So I'm also a venture partner on the Boeing company's late seed, early Series A stage accelerator program called Aerospace Accelerated. So we're currently scouting for our 4th cohort. If anyone is working on enterprise tech that is applicable to the aerospace sector, come and have a chat.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today as well. Lisa has her own business and also is an angel investor. I haven't done your introduction for you, but I just wanted to kind of set the scene. So, Lisa, if you could explain obviously a little bit about your background as well, please.
Sure. I'm Lisa Thompson. I'm founder and CEO of Purpose HR. I founded the business about 9 years ago now, and last year we were acquired by the AAB Group. So we're now part of a UK-wide accountancy and business services firm. So we essentially provide outsourced HR services to early stage and growth businesses that don't have their own HR function. As was mentioned, I personally am an angel investor myself. I have personal investments through a couple of routes, a member of the Equity Gap Syndicate, and also Mint Ventures, which is an angel investment fund for essentially for women investors in growth companies in Scotland. I'm also an ambassador with Women's Enterprise Scotland.
Okay, excellent. Let's just pick up on the equity gap thing straight away then. So what does that mean in reality, obviously, in terms of that, the angel investments there? What are you looking for? Who are you looking for? At what level?
Well, I'm a syndicate member. Mm-hmm. So it's a seed fund for basically early. It's not specific to sectors. So we invest across various sectors, from food and drink through to tech, through to different ventures. I personally have an interest in a biotech company through that route, so I'm a syndicate member. We invest up to about 2 million.
Okay, awesome. That's not a bad level to invest up to, so happy days. Duncan,
Give it a go.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Duncan Tobias. I'm founder of Brillband, and I'm co-founder of a company called Raising Partners. Really today I'll be able to talk to you about the current funding landscape. I'm currently raising a round of investment. I closed a 660k round of investment for Brillband back in April. And Raising Partners has raised 60 million for 60 businesses across the past 5 years. My background for the past 7 years I've spent either as an employee of a startup or running startups myself. So yeah, it's going to be a warts and all one with me. There's no hiding. Any question's a good question. And honestly, if I can support in any way by sharing my experience and giving you some insight into what's going on in the landscape right now, then I will.
Perfect, thank you. And I would love to say, if there is a microphone that we can pass around the audience, I would love this to be open floor in a sense as well. So if you are a founder and you've got a decent question or you want to ask a question, whether you think it's decent or not, then put your hand up and I'll try and get a microphone to you. I think it's important that it's not just me asking the question. So if there's something that's burning issue in your mind, then just feel free to ask away. Duncan, obviously, like you mentioned, obviously just then that you've done 60 rounds and 60 million. So I'm guessing that the average round is around $1 million.
Yeah, it's correct. Yeah, so that was via raising partners. So the team there, they plug into businesses. They act as an extension of the team. They go out to market. We have an angel syndicate where we place investment ourselves via that syndicate. As well as that, though, we've run crowdfunds. So some ones of note would be Thread. So I don't know if you guys come across them, but they're a menswear brand that uses AI to curate clothing, but also sell other people's clothing. They've got backing of H&M and as well as a couple of other big VCs. I think Berenjay is one of them. And then, Poppy's Picnic and all sorts. Loch Lomond Brewery was actually one of our first raises we did, which was way back with Fiona and Ewan, the two founders there. So Fiona and Ian, sorry, Ewan's my head of marketing. But yeah, so it's a great business. It's run by my co-founder and fiance Helena. We did meet before, and we founded the business before, so don't get any ideas. And yeah, in all honesty, she sits on the board of Brill Band. She's one of the best people I know when it comes to raising investment. So I will speak from personal experience today, but also if anyone wants to connect with them afterwards, feel free to let me know.
Excellent. Okay, well, there's some early stage founders in the audience, so I want to ask the question about the ecosystem here, specifically in Scotland and maybe even more locally than that in Glasgow. This is an open question to any of you on the panel. Can you give us your observations of the current state of affairs in terms of obviously that early stage? Lisa, maybe obviously start with yourself, without saying it's an open question. Lisa, it's for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not Glasgow based. I'm an Edinburgh.
Yep.
Edinburgh lady, but we do operate across Scotland. What I would say is that the market. I think what's exciting about Scotland at the moment is we're seeing more and more investors coming into the market. We've always been very strong in the angel space, but I'm actually seeing new opportunities, new funders coming in, and I think that in itself is very exciting in terms of opportunities, both for early seed funding, but also follow-on funding as well. So not just for ventures that I'm aware of through investment syndicates, but also through our client base as well, particularly the scale-up companies.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, obviously, without name dropping too many, is there any that you stand out alongside, obviously, Ada that are here with us and raising partners?
I see somebody here from Techstart Ventures, so hope you don't mind, Lisa. I'll give you a shout out. And I think what we're seeing is more and more interest. I think we've seen things like the EIE. The Engage, Invest, Exploit events, which have been really successful, really helping raise the profile of Scottish companies and actually attracting more interest. And that's not just seen companies raise investment from outside of Scotland, but it's also seen more investors come to Scotland actively for follow-on and opportunities, both at seed stage and later, which is really exciting.
I think you pick up on a really important point, which is you can't have an ecosystem without having investors coming in from elsewhere. So, Will, thinking of Ada, I think of Ada initially as London-based, and perhaps that's bad of me to say that. So do they have like a talent scout kind of network, I suppose, that kind of looks and hunts for across the whole of the UK?
Yeah, so Ada's 60 to 80 million sterling fund, initially set up within the M25 border, but very much kind of looking to invest outside as well. So they've got an office in London and an office in Bristol, nothing north of the border, sadly. But the Scout network is, I think, 200 plus from all over the UK. So really good kind of opportunity to plug into accelerators, universities, all that kind of stuff, and looking to invest in underrepresented founders. We're in Scotland. Why not?
Amazing. Should we all stop for a minute or something?
Stand up and bow. But yeah. As Lisa says, we're starting to see more investors look outside of London just because there are just so many investors in London. So
100%. And let's pick up on the underserved part of that with Ada and obviously Lisa as well, obviously with some of the work that you do. I was going to say, what can we do better? But I'm kind of tired of that question because we're always asking that. I want to know specifically where you see investment going to underserved founders. Why has that happened, and how has that happened, and what can we do more of to get more kind of fairness applied against the investment sector here in the UK? Ada, and then obviously moving on, Lisa, with the work that you do as well. There's lots of questions in that, by the way, so
yeah,
sorry.
we don't have long enough to answer that question or that set of questions. But I think when I came into tech in 2013 and I went through an accelerator program, there were 10 startups on my cohort. There was one woman across the 10 startups. Everyone was white. So you very quickly have a lack of diversity of thought, experience, and everything else within your kind of investment pool. So you invest in what you know, you invest in what you're comfortable with. So you're never really going to have the opportunity to realize diverse potential. And I think the market has started to understand that problem and has been forced to some extent to do things about it. We've still got a long way to go. But I think compared to where we were 10 years ago or 5 years ago, things are getting better.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's still a long way to go. I mean, obviously the stats are slightly out of date, but let's say that 89% of investments go to male-only founder teams, 10% to mixed male and female, and 1% to only female founding teams. That is pretty shit. In fact, it's more than shit. It's an embarrassment. So Lisa, like from your end, where do you see the networks existing, obviously here within Scotland, to help founders that aren't potentially just male and white? And I don't mean that in any disrespect to that audience either. So Lisa, perhaps some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, diversity is about a lot more than gender, obviously. I can only speak probably from my own experience and network. But, as an ambassador with Women's Enterprise Scotland, one of the things we talk about a lot is the fact that if women were to start up ventures and to get funded for these ventures at the same rate as men, then actually the impact that would have on the economy as a whole is absolutely massive. Now, I don't have the stats themselves to hand, but it's huge in terms of the potential growth rate. So one of the things we're campaigning for through Women's Enterprise Scotland is actually about the establishment of a women's business centre to understand about the specific needs that women have around raising investment, building businesses, and the type of support frameworks that are really relevant around that. Specifically in the tech sector, I was really excited to see the other week the announcement about, so some of you may know that Codebase were awarded funding for the Tech Scaler Network, which is a big initiative that's come out of the Logan Report, the Entrepreneurship Report in 2020. So they've been awarded about, I think it's 42 million funding, which I know you're going to go on to talk about as one of your themes. But what they've done is they have partnered with the Investing Women Syndicate, which is a women-focused angel syndicate in Scotland. And I thought that was particularly exciting in terms of opening up more opportunities for women tech founders in Scotland. So I think it's all about just making sure that these initiatives are not just focused on the same people, the same groups that we see over and over, but actually broadening that access and expertise.
Yeah, great.
So that was really promising.
It's a really great point as well. Like, obviously, from the outset of a program being created, whether that's an accelerator program or whether that's an investment kind of syndicate, you need to make sure that you're being open to new audiences and communities. So that's a great initiative. Duncan, from your end, obviously, the Codebase kind of expansion into Scotland, and obviously the work they're doing, the 42 million that's been mentioned there, is that a positive? I mean, obviously, I'm guessing it is, but like, there's always some kind of pullback from people when it's a government-focused fund. I mean, you have to look at Tech Nation recently, and obviously that being moved over to Barclays. Is there some concern that it's government money, or are we cool with it?
I don't think there's any concern when it comes to government money. I just think fundamentally, as a founder and someone that is running a business at the moment, I what's the benefit to me moving my business into that place? Like, it's not open yet. One, when will that place be open? No one from their organisation has reached out to us as one of Scotland's biggest and most promising, well-funded startups. So, like, if the money's there, great, but the money's got to trickle down. And we've spoken about seed, we've spoken about VC, but actually, I think intrinsically, if we want to see change, and we want to see actually a more diverse group of founders and more businesses receiving investment and more people from different backgrounds, whether it be ethnic backgrounds, sexuality, or whether it's a woman or male, but even socioeconomic backgrounds, we need to really create events and spaces where that 1%, because realistically it is the 1% that are investing, are able to go and meet people of different class, ethnicity, and sexuality, and hear from them and hear their stories. And for those individuals to feel comfortable to write those initial, like, early pre-seed checks. I don't know anyone, and I don't have family that could invest, 150 grand. There you go, Duncan. Like I don't have that. So it took me 12 months to raise 660 grand for our pre-seed round. It wasn't quick. It was a really long, difficult, horrible slog where I heard no more than I heard yes, obviously. And you always will have that. And I'm not the solution. I'm literally the antithesis. I am a white middle-class male. But I do think education, and if we surround ourselves with different people and different culture, then ultimately places like Codebase and places like Barclays Ecos Labs will be able to create places where pre-seed businesses, where real ideas and exciting pieces of innovation can be nurtured and then accelerated in a way that doesn't compromise the founder's position in the business with not negative, but with information from people that haven't actually lived that experience. And I think that's the one thing as a founder is really make sure that you are listening to the right people, and really make sure you're listening to people that have done it, been there and gone it. When you're in an accelerator or you're in a program like that, look at the credentials of the people that you are going to be working with, because ultimately if you're going to sacrifice equity, or if you're going to pay $6,000 a month to be in that office space, know what you're paying for. Because at the end of the day, it might be that money's best spent elsewhere, whether that's on yourself, whether that's on a really shit-hot financial model that enables you to model out the entirety of your business, or if it's on doing a consumer research report to validate your idea before you sink any more of your savings, whatever that might be, if it's £100 or £100,000, just do that research first and then make an informed decision. Don't rush it, is my only thing. Is that's where you get into trouble, particularly as an early stage founder. And it can put the likes of Ada and other VCs off of rounds if it's too complex legally at an early stage. And actually, typically as an early stage business, you'll be fronting those legal fees yourself. I think that's the one thing we need to mention is it does cost money to raise money. Yeah. Lots of people don't realize that. It costs, set aside 10% of your round. Honestly, I raised 660 grand, 58,000 of that was spent either on fees to VCs, on lawyers. So just make sure you've got those things covered. And some funds will change the way they do their fee structures, but they are businesses at the end of the day, and they've got to keep the lights on.
I think that was a great piece of advice. Something to remember: keep 10% back. I was going to ask what makes a startup investable, and I'm going to flip it around the other way and say, what should these startup founders be looking for in a VC or an angel? What should make them worth partnering with that startup? So Will, quick answer on that, and I'll go down the line.
I think the first thing is always do due diligence. So you're going to get DD'd, you might as well do it the other way, because it'll be a working relationship of 10 years if it works. And I think VCs are very keen, or any investors are very keen on saying that they're value add. And in my experience, that's mostly bullshit. So look for, as Duncan says, the track record, the experience, talk to their portfolio, talk to their other investments, and always ask for feedback and second opinions.
Landscape VC as well, if I remember rightly, they have a anonymous panel where you can go on and look at kind of the history of the venture capital firms and angel investment firms that you might be partnering with. I think that's a route that a lot of founders maybe are starting to go down. Is that fair? Yeah,
so Landscape started as a pandemic pain-solving problem for the founder, and it's basically a review platform, anonymous review platform for VCs, soon to be angels, so Trustpilot for VCs, that sort of thing. It's starting to get picked up, so use platforms like that to see what the feedback is.
Yeah, great stuff. Lisa, from your end, what should a startup be looking for in that investment partner?
Oh, I'll speak from my experience, which is the sort of Scottish angel network and landscape. And, what I would say is your investor hopefully is going to bring more to the table than just money. You're probably going to have somebody that ends up either being a shadow board member or an active member of your board. What you don't want is a biscuit eater that turns up and reads the board papers. You want somebody that's going to actively look to grow your business, bring connections, bring their network, ideally bring a black book, bring those kind of opportunities along. And what I would say as well is speak to founders that have taken investment from that fund. Why would they not be happy to introduce you to founders that they've already invested in? Get a sense about, have those founders been developed and grown with the business, or what's been their experience? If their goals to maybe exit founders and bring in their own teams and things like that, is that right for you? It might actually help you, depending on what you want your role to be as your business scales, but just be informed and have those discussions and be proactive about it.
Great piece of advice. Don't just be a biscuit eater. I can use that in many different situations from now on. The other one is think of yourself as like it's Christmas and you're getting a present, and that VC is giving you like a freaking 50 grand, 100 grand present. You don't want just an investor for Christmas. They need, like Will mentioned, it's a 10-year cycle perhaps. So Christmas is great, but you got to remember about the new year and the pain in the ass meetings you have to go to. So Duncan, from your end, when you were raising yourself, how much due diligence did you do? Was that very much part of your thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think to just circle back to the first question, and then I'll answer that one as well, because they're obviously combined. But I think for me, I didn't just approach funds and go, I want money, like I want to pitch. Like, you need to build a relationship. Go out there and start speaking to them. Like, don't just rely on platforms. Like, it's relationships. And, Will's touched on it. It could be a 10-year relationship. And if you've got a 10-year relationship with someone, like, you want to know who you're getting into bed with, like, so to speak. Like, you don't want to just, it's not married at first sight. Like, you don't want to run that risk, and that's why that's a game show. But so, in answer to what you look for, each business is unique. We all know our strengths, we all know our weaknesses. Find someone that fills your knowledge gaps. Find someone that supports you in opening doors, as Lisa's touched upon, but fundamentally, like, you just want someone that's going to add value to your team. And then, sorry, your second question was...
I can't remember.
It was
I had beers last night.
Yeah, DD, like due diligence on people. Like I said, I just spoke to people, and I spoke to funds, and I there is a balance. You're taking money from someone. They want to see a return. It is a business transaction at the end of the day. Just actually, for a good piece of DD, I went through the angel syndicate that was coming in through Fuel Ventures Angel Syndicate, and I found that a former Russian CEO of Cyberbank who had a case for sexual harassment within the office appear in his team, and he tried to sweep it under the carpet. So I said no to his money. Like, I don't want that as part of my business. So that's the type of stuff you want to look out for. And at the end of the day, until you actually are sat in a board meeting, it's very difficult. We're not lie detectors. You're not going to sit an investor down in front of one.
No, perfect. Great advice from all three of you. Thank you. Is there a question from the floor before I go on? Yep. Okay, brilliant. Have we got a microphone? Danny's running down. Here he is. Oh, thank you.
Hi. I've really learned a lot from this session. I wanted to ask, because you kept talking about like the diversity and how to balance that out. But there is a niche area, which is the migrant entrepreneurs who have moved here and started a business, and they don't have pre-existing relationships and networks, and they've come from a totally different work culture where things are done very differently. And we come in here and we struggle because, first of all, we're trying to build a network, and second of all, we're then trying to build a business at the same time, recognizable brand, and trying to raise funding without having that pre-existing relationship. You can't call on a schoolmate to introduce you to somebody, or you haven't gone to school with this person or have pre-existing relationship. And how do we mitigate these gaps? Because these businesses could actually add to the Scottish economy by bringing something different from a different perspective. What are we doing in that space? We're addressing the ethnic minority and socio-economic and the other aspects, but we haven't looked at this migrant professionals and what it poses in terms of migrant entrepreneurs?
It's a great question. Well, I'll open that up to the floor. We're missing out on unicorns. What are we going to do? And they're here in this room potentially.
As I said earlier, I'm a white middle-class guy. It's a very difficult question for me to answer. All I can say is, personally, my door is open. I will speak to anybody and anyone. My team, on the face of it, does look all white male, but our CTO is a very proud gay man. Our head of software development is a trans individual. So, I think all I can say is that their lived experiences have brought a huge amount of value to the way that we problem solve as a business. And it's just because of the adversity that those individuals have gone through to be where they're at, and not the same problems I've had to deal with. So, I don't know, I would love to just be able to speak to more people, and I think it's up to people like me to open the door to our businesses, to our and sit on stages like this and talk about our experiences. But I'm not going to pretend to know I have the solution, because actually my head of marketing said it earlier. Intrinsically, I am part of the problem. So all I can do is try and change and learn by listening.
So leading on from that, I mean, obviously I'll stick with that question, but I just also want to pick up on the fact that on LinkedIn, for example, sometimes you have VCs that put on there warm introductions only. Well, that's a friggin' nightmare to start with if you don't have that network. So I think your question is fantastic. And it doesn't necessarily be that you're new into Scotland, or, I mean, I don't live in Scotland, but I'm guessing that we need to be more open to that open door policy. So answering the question, but also thinking as well about any open door policies that you know are out there that can help immediately here with this audience.
Yeah. I mean, I've not walked in your shoes. But at the same time, what I would say is you're doing absolutely the right thing. You're coming to events like this, you're getting out there, you're knocking on the door, keep doing that. And I think there are investors that come to events like this that want to meet people. So, take them at that face value, introduce yourself, get the business cards, send your pitch decks, get a meeting. That when I started my business, and it's not the same, but I had to just go out and knock on every single door, hear no a lot of times, and just keep pushing. And it's not always through introductions. Sometimes it's just through tweeting somebody and messaging them, and just trying to get that time with them. So I think already what you're doing, that's the way. And if you can find people that you look up to that have maybe already started on that journey, asking them for the introductions. Do ask, because people are open. My personal experience, as I say, is not yours. It never will be. But at the same time, I do find the Scottish network open and accessible and welcoming. The other thing I would say about in Scotland is that there is a big push around inclusion and around impact in terms of investment. So particularly where there's opportunities for funding through programs, inclusion and impact is definitely becoming a big criteria and part of schemes. So I've been part of programs like Scottish Enterprise Unlocking Ambition programme and other areas where they do look at more than just the financial potential of the business, and it's also about potentially job creation in different communities or access and networks. So sometimes it's about getting your value proposition down and getting across, well, actually we might be bringing jobs for different groups and communities or other profile opportunities. So just getting that pinned down is quite valuable as well.
Thank you, Lisa. Great answer. Will, obviously from your end, anything else?
The 3 enterprise agencies are quite good at being open or door openers. So South of Scotland Enterprise, Scottish Enterprise, and Central Belt and Highlands and Islands are generally good places to start on the public sector side. In most of the bigger cities, there are starting to be kind of entrepreneurship hubs. So Codebase in Edinburgh, lots of stuff in Glasgow, but starting to talk to the beginnings of those hubs. The universities are really good as well. Glasgow's got a great entrepreneurship innovation team. Conferences like this, and we're starting to see down south, I haven't seen a huge amount of Scottish investors do it yet, but starting to do open office hours as investors. So there's something daft like 40 or 50 funds in England that do office hours as a group. So that sort of thing's a really good way of just kind of carpet bombing the networking in terms of building those relationships as quickly as possible. But I think, as Lisa says, Scotland is very open, so you just have to ask. And in my experience, the doors generally tend to open. So.
Okay, brilliant. I'm just going to name drop these 3 people on the panel so you can ask them on LinkedIn as well. So it's Will Benton, Lisa Thompson without the P, and Duncan D.
Tobias.
Thank you. I'm so useless at pronunciation. I'm sorry.
Right, no worries.
Also at the back of the room we have Techstart as well, which is part of Pentech Ventures, if I remember rightly. So it's Techstart Ventures. There she is. Look, you just got to go up to them. And if they're knobbers, then you don't want to work with them anyway. That's the honest thought I have. And so they should have open door policies. The lockdown was kind of good in some ways because a lot of it was online as well, which meant that you were not having to be location-based. You didn't have to be in London to access some of the open hour stuff. So in your experience, guys, is there anything that's going on still within that space, within the virtual? Are people still continuing to do that? Will, you're nodding?
Yeah. So female founder office hours started during lockdown and is still going, and they've now got 1,500 startups pitching over however many days it takes. There's a bunch of activities like that are still going. So we as a team, we also do open office hours where you can book in, depending on how generous we are, 10 or 20-minute conversations about anything startup related, ideally startup related. But a bunch of people do that as well. So.
Yep. No, thank you. And the next question on this kind of relates to this is about getting your pitch right, because I'm guessing sometimes that these guys get a lot of not much time to hear from startups, so we want to get the pitch right, don't we? And what barriers do you kind of face when you're meeting with startups? What things put you off maybe that follow-up call? So you got the 10, 15 minutes, you get past that, but what if you don't make that? What's stopping you listening to them again? Will, and then I'll go down the line again.
You got to understand what to do in that first batch of time. So make me interested to want to have that second conversation. So tell me who you are, why you're different from anyone else, and what is the USP of either you or your idea or your business if you've got one. And what you want from me, because I'm not going to have the time to tell you what I can do for you. So do your homework ahead of time, if that makes sense.
Excellent. So don't waste silly time asking silly questions about the company or the VC firm, because you should know that already. Lisa, next thing.
I just had my first experience this year as a judge on the Scottish Edge funding panel. One of the things that we took away from the businesses we saw this year in particular was about actually how many businesses have really got their revenue model down and understand how they're going to make money versus just getting really excited about the idea. And the innovation and the tech. Now, obviously, you have to have that to stand out in the market, but you also need to be able to articulate like who's going to buy it, who's going to pay, and how that generate revenue, even if it's not straight away. So I think that's something that it sounds a bit obvious, but we don't always see it or hear it.
If you don't hear in a 3 or 5 minute pitch the monetization strategy within the first minute or two, don't waste your time. Get that nailed in and mention how much money you're going to make that investor. Duncan.
Yeah, I'd agree on that. It's just nailing your value proposition, know who you're speaking to, know what they want. I think at the end of the day, though, like, there's different types of like the investment that we got into our business, a lot of that was conversation based. Like, you'll know if an investor's interested because either the conversation is going to last 15 minutes or the conversation is going to last 45 and they'll extend the call. And I think, ultimately, so I think you've even got to get the call though, and you've got to really make sure that your deck is nailing your value proposition as well, and that it's engaging, it's interesting, it's easy to read. Don't bombard them with information, but also make sure that you're not leaving, not allowing for assumption. You want to make sure that there are questions, but if you're leaving room for assumption, and they can assume that you're doing something that you're potentially not, you're not giving yourself the opportunity to actually have the conversation with Will or have the conversation with Lisa and go, well, actually, no, that's not what we're doing. So, yeah, that's just my lived experience, though.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions from the floor before I ask another one? Thank you, Danny. Any others? Okay, if not, I'm going to ask this question. Yes, please do. Sorry.
Sorry, I wanted to make sure nobody else had a question before I ask the second one. I wanted to ask, what's the ideal runway that you feel like a startup should have made some sort of revenue to show that they are validated in the market? So if a startup is coming to you and looking to raise, and they've been in business, say, for 3 years, and they haven't gotten to the place where someone is paying for what they are selling, do you still listen to that and say, okay, I'm going to, I can see the potential in this and invest in it, or is it like a turn-off? I'm asking this because for startups that started during the COVID, have had like to have a year plus where it's been wasted and they haven't had the potential to the opportunity to do the stuff that they were supposed to be doing. And also for startups that are owned by migrants, I'm going back to this again, entrepreneurs who might take longer to build enough relationship to get their products in the market for paying customers to start coming in. Do you have like an average runway for when a startup should have started to make revenue before you were like, no, I'm not investing in that? Or
Brilliant question. Will?
The short answer is no. The long answer is it depends on every single business. If you've been down the road and you've been 5 years, you've remortgaged the house, you've got 15 credit cards, it's definitely a no. I don't want to talk to you. I have been in that situation, sadly. But it depends. So at the early stages, all I really look at is team, because that's where you get to the next stage.
Thank you, Will. Lisa, from your end, obviously, run rate, how important is it?
I mean, to answer that question, I would say I know what I know, which is building a services business. So I know about that. So that's a very different proposition to other types of businesses where you might have different capital investment up front, or different R&D costs and things like that. So where it's a different type of business, if it's scientific business, or there's significant R&D planning and things like that. As a syndicate member, I would rely on experts within that group to advise on that piece. So I think there is no
Yep.
mechanism to calculate that. It's specific to your business and the sector and the model. Sorry, it's not very specific.
No, Duncan, any thoughts on that? That's different?
To be honest with you, I've got a service-based business that's run for 5 years. We bootstrapped that. But with Brillband, there was no way I could bootstrap that. We're trying to build a challenger brand, and as I said, it took a long time. It took 12 months to raise, and and I sunk my own personal savings into it to validate that, so that investors knew that, well, actually, let's give this guy a shot, and then team. So, no, really, I think it really just depends on your business model, and it depends on what industry you're working in as well, and that will then dictate how that industry invests.
The one thing I would add, if you haven't started making money, is being able to articulate how you will. But also, as kind of Lisa touched on earlier, the way that the world is financially at the moment, you're going to need to be able to articulate how you will make money, because we've gone from the kind of the boom funding cycle, everyone can have money because it's really cheap, to no, you're going to have to be able to demonstrate how you make money to make me money, to start getting the investment kind of moving forward.
Yeah, I think those 3 points are really brilliant, and thinking about your team is really important. Who's on your board? Who's advising you? Who's obviously going to help you open doors? So I think that's really important, because if you don't have those door openers, and we've touched upon that already, then it's going to stop you from hopefully bringing clients in ASAP, which is what investors want. If you're a software as a service company and you're just doing free software and you've been going for 3 years and you're not be able to sell that software to anyone because you're just giving it away for free, are you going to be able to sell it, and what's your transaction model? Is that fair from a software perspective, Will?
Yeah, you've got to be able to identify who your customer is, how valuable the problem that you solve for them is, and what they're willing to spend. And if they're not willing to spend, you haven't got a business.
Yeah, brilliant, excellent. Any other questions from the floor, please? Danny, here he is. Oh, I love Danny. Yep, okay, brilliant, thank you. Danny does all the hard work, by the way, so thank you, Danny.
Hello. So my question is that what sector is your current focus on? Is there a particular sector that you're focusing that, this seems investable, like fintech is doing really well? What is your current focus on?
Personally, I invest at seed stage, any sector, but my experience is B2C or two-sided marketplaces, because that was the business I built beforehand. On the aerospace program, aerospace or adjacent sectors, but that's anything from deep tech through to oil and gas. And then for ADA, again, it's sector agnostic but stage specific. So anything from 500,000 sterling to 2-ish million.
Okay, thank you. Duncan and then Lisa finally as well, please.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not actively investing. I've just put all my money in Brillband. So, I think to answer, you've just got to go and identify the fund. Like, there are funds that will specifically invest in robotics. There are funds that will specifically invest in B2B SaaS, which sadly seems to be the case in Scotland a lot. But I think, realistically, it goes back to I go identify the investor. Will's just said it, like, what's Will's background? So he said B2C, if he's investing in B2C and you're a B2C business, well, yeah, approach Will. But if Will's background has been deep tech, mining, I don't know, then don't approach him. Like, it's that logical sort of step. And that's why I said build relationships. It's okay to ask as well. And it might be that if Will's a deep tech mining investor, but he knows someone that invests in B2C, he'll do an intro. And I think that's the one thing. Please ask for introductions. Even if you have a no from a fund and you've got through to maybe the third stage, be like, well, who do you think would be interested? And typically they're more than happy to make an introduction and help.
Thank you. And Lisa, final words from yourself before we have to close.
Well, I mean, the personal interests that I have are quite varied, actually, because I'm a member of a couple of syndicates, and they're small investments and different. So I've got investment in a B2C water company and also in a biotech company. So are those areas I have experience of? No, but I trusted other people, and I was really excited by the founders of those businesses and their plans. So, I think it depends. It's more about probably the syndicate or the group and what their portfolio interests are and being targeted, because your time's valuable. So be targeted in who you speak to, because lots of people have coffee with you. It doesn't mean that they're actually interested to spend money with you.
Brilliant. No, great answer. Loads of people do have coffee with you, and they really aren't interested, which is sad, but you at least know within 25 minutes. Finally, obviously, from my end, and this is just a question on behalf of everyone in the room. Oh, Danny has a question.
What's the biggest risk that didn't pay off?
Oh.
I like hearing from successful people and their mistakes.
We turned Johnny from hopping down for an accelerator program.
Oh, shit. Lisa, any mistakes, any startups you've missed out on?
Oh, I'm probably not experienced investor enough to have any, sorry.
In any way?
As in, you're too good that you don't miss any.
No, I just play around.
Oh, happy days. Duncan, finally, anyone that you've seen?
No, again, I'm not an investor. I'm a founder,
Yep.
and I've got a business that advises people on how to invest.
Yeah.
So fortunately, not. To probably, I haven't got enough money yet.
I think we have another question here.
Sorry, I have a question for Duncan because it's service-based, right? How important was patents when you were trying to raise funds? Because what happens if you don't have any patents?
For me, it wasn't important at all.
Okay.
I clearly articulated where the IP was going to be. Remember, when I raised the money for Brillband, which closed in April of this year, it was an idea on a page. What I'd done, though, was I'd secured contracts. I had done consumer research reports. I invested in a really solid financial model that demonstrated exactly when the business became cash generative. 40,000 customers in December 24, we become profitable. Now, all models are wrong, but at least I could demonstrate that we'd done our work, and actually that model is incredibly conservative and complex. So, I really can't emphasize how important it is to be prepared. And also, I just want to make it clear that it's not a quick process. Like, raising money does not happen overnight. You may see things on Crowdcube, on Seedrs. I've done those rounds. I built them at Raising Partners, and we spent 3 months prior, before launch, raising the funds from community or from existing investors and telling people that we raised it in 24 hours. It's all marketing. It's all BS. And I think that's the one thing as founders we need to be better at, is removing the BS, removing the smoke and mirrors, removing the celebrity around being a founder, and actually just having business leader conversations. We're all in business. It's not sexy. Period. And we're all trying to innovate. We're all trying to make the world a better place. So let's focus on that rather than focus on how many likes we get on LinkedIn.
Great final point. Thank you very much. Can I give a round of applause, please, to our panelists? Thank you. In terms of if anyone wants to reach out to you guys, is it okay if they have a 2-minute, 3-minute pitch with you now or chat with you? Or is it better if they connect with you on LinkedIn? How's that for yourselves?
LinkedIn, please.
LinkedIn, please. Lisa?
It's probably better LinkedIn. I don't, any investments that I do through syndicates, like I've already talked about, so it's better to make introductions to the relevant group.
Thank you. And Duncan?
You're welcome to pitch to me, but I've got no money to give you. So, but in all honesty, if anyone wants a coffee with me at any point, I know we said it, I can't invest, but I can give you some advice and stuff. I do have to pick my kid up though, so I will be running.
We are running a wee bit late, so thank you for your time today.